Welcome everyone. This is a very exciting interview I'm conducting today with Dermot Hill, which some of you will already know and some of you will very much want to get to know him. And today we're going to be talking a lot around investments from both sides. So it's a real joy for me to be doing this. Some of you will know, those that don't know, that Dermot has a strong track record in making senior board level appointments that create significant commercial impact and drive stakeholder value, which is very important. His background includes extensive experience in launching, building and transitioning entrepreneurial organisations. This has given Dermot a rare depth of insight into the unique challenges faced by high growth businesses. And as a result of this, in 2017, in the autumn of that year, he founded Stakeholderz. And you can't miss that name. It's behind us all. And it's a name that you will definitely already know, as I say, or want to know more about. Now, why have I been chosen to interview Dermot? Well, I'm no stranger to the world and life of entrepreneurship. I founded Academy in 1997, which was the world's first social network, creating a friendship network for them. And that required investment many times. And I know what it's like trying to find investors that have empathy and understanding and have the type of pockets that you need. But I also have had an insight into what it's like as an investor wanting to make sure you're working with the right types of entrepreneurs that you're going to invest in. I work with ambitious entrepreneurs, and this has taken me into the world of pitches and investment clubs and angel communities. And I am particularly excited about the wisdom that Dermot has and the solution he's created for investors. Now, I know we will be talking to Dermot through the questions I'm going to be asking him about the work he does to support angels and cashed out entrepreneurs. For now, I just want to say how I'm excited about Dermot's syndicate membership program. It's a brilliant concept for investors. And we will be getting to that because particularly when Dermot brought that to me, I thought this is exactly what the market needs. I feel that Dermot's listened to the pain and the challenges of investors, the experienced ones and the newbies, and has found a really brilliant solution for them. And Stakeholderz is definitely on point. So I'm really thrilled to be here with you, Dermot, and I'm hoping over the next few minutes, which we're going to be having together with everyone, so please stay engaged. We're really going to unwrap this, and I've got some exciting questions. I think the first thing I want to ask is let's really ground ourselves here, Dermot, with what is the state of the market at the moment, especially around technology investing?
Yeah, great question, Penny. Just before we get on to that, can I just say that 2 years ago, almost to this day, did we set down our very first formal interview. So this is a bit of an interesting milestone event. So thank you for coming online today. So the state of technology investing from our perspective is, I think, in an incredibly good state. So if you look at the UK, is just past the 1 trillion mark in terms of its value. And that sits alongside China and the US. So we are, third, ranked number 3 globally. So we are in the most amazing place from the point of view of technology. And, Gerard Grecht of Tech Nation has actually said that this is a watershed moment for this country because it really has placed us absolutely on the map. London was very recently voted the second best ecosystem to set up a venture globally, second only to Silicon Valley. So we're building the right ecosystem and environment in which to create these fantastic companies. And in terms of the sectors we're seeing, and I'm pleased to say that last year and in the last sort of 15 months, we've actually been putting companies to our investors in every single one of these 6 sectors. So there's services on demand, ed tech, prop tech, alternative finance, and I'd see Stakeholderz actually being in the alternative finance. It's not mainstream, but it actually provides equity funding to the technology ventures that we'll go on to talk a little bit more about in a minute. InsurTech, gamification, and cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency is a really interesting market. And we'll return, I'm sure, to that later. But, and by the way, the government on the 4th of April has opened up a review where they're going to be looking at creating the UK as a global hub for crypto asset development. Wow. So, and again, more on that in a minute. But, you know, we are in an incredible state. And of course, all of this that I've just said is hot on the heels of the fantastic information we've just received about Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter for 44 billion. Actually, you know, when you were looking at Academy, you were looking probably at the value of every single, you know, a daily user. And what we did was a quick calculation to work out that the value of every single user on Twitter, their daily users, was worth $213 in the purchase. If you drop back and look at Microsoft's purchase of LinkedIn, they paid $62 per user. So there's some really interesting financial dynamics beginning to happen in the market relative to influence and use around these very major portals. And by the way, Twitter, in comparison with things like WhatsApp, TikTok, has but a small proportion of an audience comparison, but it has a very big influence politically and socially. I know you use Twitter a lot, and it's an amazing development, and I think quite an interesting backdrop on which to then launch the rest of our discussion this afternoon. There's no doubt about it that our investors like to be in early, and I think about the time when the investors got in on Twitter UK in 2011, so it hasn't taken long to generate this 44 billion pound sale. The investors that got in early on that deal have made a lot of money, and that's exactly why we are in the market today, is to find the really exciting deals and bring them to our investors to ensure they can have part of the action. So hopefully that's a reasonable roundup of the UK technology sector, and, you know, from our perspective, given the various exciting things that are going on. Yeah,
and obviously, Dermot, what helps with this is that you are fascinated by the subject of technology.
Definitely.
Around that subject, and I think that helps a lot when you're looking at the investors and bringing them on, which we'll probably come to, but the type of investments and pitches that you want to put in front of them.
Absolutely. You can't but help but be passionate about it, what's going on. It really drives a lot of excitement.
Yeah. And also, you know, what's interesting about Twitter is it's so sustainable. You know, the others seem to peak and trough a little bit. And I think that's very similar to some of the investments that I've seen going on, and the pitches that I've witnessed, is that these are solid. These aren't fads. You know, these are solid business ideas, which, you know, Twitter, you know, these other platforms seem to be going in and out of favour, don't they? So
they do.
And just going on from that, so I know that you've had you know, some exciting projects since I last talked to you that have been successful. So you know, tell me about, have you seen an exit yet within Stakeholderz?
We certainly have, and I actually think this is an event which is very defining for us, because when you come to the market as an equity funding platform, and you know, you're out to support ventures in the very early stages of their growth, when you see an exit, that is the whole cycle completing, and that is when our investors start to see, you know, the returns that we hope they will. And so, yes, pleasingly, just before Christmas, we had news, great time to receive it. Just before Christmas, we had the details of our very first exit, Vortex IoT, which was a 5 and 8x return to our investors. And that was in 3.5 years. And there are a couple of hallmarks I think it might be worth just drawing on, because first of all, it was the very first deal we ever published on Stakeholderz. You know, how lucky is that? Or is that, I think, a measure of, because it took me a long time to judge, to put the first venture up. I don't know, but one way or another, it came good. And so what we saw there, though, was that they had an incredibly strong management team. It came from within the Stakeholderz network, so it was sort of arguably off-market a bit. And they are a very interesting company to watch how they went about it, because actually at the time we had a sponsor called then Clearview IP, now part of Deloitte's. Again, good news, they've been bought out. Nothing to do with us, I might add, but an interesting indicator nonetheless, we think. And they had Clearview set up a dashboard to monitor their intellectual property, their patents. And so in its own way, there was a sort of sensible connections made. But the real challenge with Vortex was its valuation. And, when I tell the audience this afternoon that, the valuation was 1.2 million, pre-money. So it was not a big valuation at all, but they were really pleased with it because others were valuing it at 500,000. So, that was looking back 3.5, 4 years, nearly 4 years now. And you think, well, back then, well, where to go? And now we're just sitting there reflecting on the reasons why that company has been a success. And there's more I could go into, but I'm slightly conscious of time that we have together today. So I'll hand back to you.
Well, I think there's quite a lot of Dermot's secret sauce goes in, doesn't it, when you're looking at your investors and thinking
it's all about take-home value. It's all about take-home value.
Exactly. So your ventures, what's happening at the moment with this? Are you seeing lots of opportunity?
Yeah, so we've actually been through a very busy phase, and everyone online, most online will recall this, I'm sure. During the pandemic, we didn't let the grass grow under our feet. We actually were putting out one large number of ventures after another. So last year we put up a total of 53 ventures, and this was partly our bid to learn more about the market, more about platform investing, more about our angel investors and their appetite to engage through the platform. And I have to say it was worth every ounce of energy in delivering all of that, because where we are today and the knowledge that we have today about platform investing and where we want to go as a company is frankly quite remarkable. So we've been busy. We are moving away from startups. We've done the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed entrepreneur with a great pitch deck and a bit of a management team that's a bit shadowy. And we want to see now revenues, and we want to see much more than just proof of concept. And would we say no? We are looking for the next Twitter, and we think we have a good eye and a good judgment. So we will continue to watch that market, but we will be much less active in it. So our investors can expect to see more mature ventures, possibly slightly more highly valued, but there'll be much more substance to them. And that's the substance that they can really judge the quality of their individual investments against.
It sounds like you're really balancing that sort of risk reward quite well. So
correct.
Yeah. Which is very comforting. So how are investors responding at the moment to what's going on with all of your ventures?
So the investors are responding, I think they're pretty well, really. They've been very much with us on the journey. One of the things I think we're very interested in is generally the propensity to click a pledge and legally binding pledge on the platform. And we've done quite a lot of work around this. And what we're finding is that definitely angels want to meet, even if it's just online, when it was during the pandemic. And there were investments being made, but they do want to meet the founders and the team. They do want to be able to get into some of the due diligence. And so what we're beginning to do, and more on this in a very short while, I think, on this discussion, we're beginning to do is to focus on our service to them as a community. Platform investing is good. It certainly cohabits within our overall business model really well. but we need to add more to it. And you touched on your introduction around the syndicate and the platform when they work. And, I just look forward to seeing the two working in parallel because I think there's so much synergy between the two modus operandi of those types of investing.
I'd like to, I know people might be interested in hearing about a syndicate, and we are going to get to that.
We are.
Before we do, what do you notice, how's the market faring generally with angel investing?
So angel investing has probably never been as popular. It's really, people are taking to it and more people are coming to it. If you look at the numbers that we're recruiting to our platform, we're still seeing absolutely a very strong, steady flow. And we are one of the leaders in the sector putting the numbers into our register. So we are very good, I think, at marketing and finding great investors. And we've never found that difficult. We've actually hoisted the flag to the top of the mast. People are coming to follow that. But we're also going to find really good, highly capable, very well equipped in terms of funds, angel investors, to actually get involved with our ventures. So the investor world, I think, has never been more healthy. I think that's supported by great things like the tax arrangement around SEIS and EIS. You won't hear me talk much about SEIS because that's a bit early stage for us. But EIS is really important to our investors. It just makes sure there's a bit of cover there if things don't quite work out the way they should have done. And, we're going to talk a bit about the ventures maybe in a minute or two, but broadly we've seen 60 ventures and we've only seen one fall by the wayside. And that was actually much more a sort of reconstruction, I think, the same tech, the same team. And I think it was done by arrangement with the previous investors to give it a cleaner, bill of health. So in 60 ventures that we've seen and put up, and there will be people online that I'm sure will have kept their ear to the ground. I'd love to hear from anyone online today if you know different, and that you do know some ventures that we put up that haven't flourished and moved forward, because clearly I need to keep very current on this. And this is an important figure, out of 60, to have one, but not quite, a failure, but obviously a reconstruction, is a pretty interesting achievement.
Yeah, it is, especially, especially you're going into that more mature, not the SEIS business, and
yes, right.
Scaling, that can be also a bit of a frightening period. So that is really impressive. Indeed. So I love this syndicate idea, and I want to start talking about this because I think this idea of how you've got the experienced ones and these newbie cashed out entrepreneurs that are coming onto the platform to invest, I think it's a really great combination. So, tell us a little bit more about Stakeholderz and the next developments that you've got.
So I've sort of touched on this earlier on. We're going to increase the service we give to our angels, and by doing that we want closer engagement, and what we want is to be able to learn more about them, to be with them more on the journey, to input where necessary. We can't advise, we're not eligible in terms of the regulatory system to be able to advise, but there's ways in which one can actually put the message across and let them think about it and make their own decisions. So, the syndicate is fantastic because, first of all, it comes from the platform community. So they know Stakeholderz already. They know how the platform works, many of them. Some of them, I think, are still going to be finding their way. And what we're going to do is to build that environment. And it's an ecosystem which becomes a much more safer haven, and I use the word safer rather than safe, measuredly. It's a safer haven for angel investing. And this is why cashed out entrepreneurs like it so much. They've got a lot of money, and what they want to do is mix with very sophisticated angels that have perhaps made one or two errors themselves, and will share those war stories and make sure that the next investments that the sophisticated and experienced angels get involved in are really good. And of course, that's where the cashed-out entrepreneur will happily follow, often with quite considerable sums. And what that does is that stops them, making the same mistakes, and they'll learn. And so the syndicate itself is such an amazing environment to learn within. Other areas like due diligence, some people are really hot and strong on due diligence. And what we will be doing is putting certain selected members of the syndicate into due diligence on the ventures. We don't want bad ventures to be presented to the syndicate any more than the syndicate members want to see bad ventures. So we want to make sure they are absolutely tip top and at the top of their game when we present them. And therefore the syndicate members will be able to draw on the experience and mindset, because it takes a certain mindset to be really good at due diligence. You've got to know where to go and look. You've got to know what to make as a decision, having found it. So is it something that's fixable and the exec team has learnt about it? Or is this definitely a red flag and no further actions to be taken? And, by the time we get to that stage, I think stakeholders and our own scorecard process, because we have a scorecard process that we put ventures through, will have flagged up most of the areas to be aware of as the deals go through the due diligence phase. So I am super excited about the syndicate. I also was very privileged to be part of the inaugural event. I guess one or two might be online from that as well today. And we had drinks in a room at the IOD. There was a very small party, but we had the most amazing conversations and the most amazing networks were being opened up and ideas shared. And, frankly, if that's the start of the syndicate, when we put 100 people in a room, it's going to go on past midnight. And it's going to be a lot of fun, and business is going to be done. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this grow.
Dermot, if anybody that knows your past knows what an absolute genius you are at bringing people together and creating that culture. And, you're creating a community here of people. And what I find really interesting, I think about the second business that I started. I brought in a cashed-out entrepreneur as the investor. It was her first ever investment, and she had exited a business for £22 million. She was in her 60s, and it was extremely difficult for me because her knowledge and her experience of investing she didn't have it. And so what I love about this is this opportunity for cashed-out entrepreneurs to work with people who are experienced, because she came over controlling. She started thinking that I was an employee. There was all sorts of aspects of it which showed her naivety and created a lot of stress in the business. So I think it's fantastic you create this community and this symbiosis, between everybody, enjoying one another's experiences and money, they can invest. So
well, and there is an integrated safety net. When a collective investment is made, each of the investors has made almost a pledge to the other: I'm supporting it with my capital.
Yeah.
And therefore they are interconnected in a very strong way to make sure that that venture is very successful. And if there are problems, they will help. They're not there to hinder, because that's incredibly destructive and very unhelpful. But they are there to help the ventures and the exec teams power themselves forward. And I think it might be worth just dropping in why Stakeholderz. Another little plug here, if I might.
I would like you to.
because we have a very strong human capital element to what we do. And it's the executive teams that will make a really good business fly. An average, exec team won't make a very good deal out of anything. But a great exec team will make anything fly and fly to the moon and back. Yeah. And so the exec teams are absolutely fundamental in everything that we do as a company and that our investors invest in. And so the human capital element and our links to executive search is a very important and powerful addition, because we're then offering not just investment capital in the form of equity, we're obviously offering human capital.
Yeah.
What I really look forward to is the time when we actually really open up that part of our strategy, because we have in mind a talent portal, which is partly why we're in the process of going through what we're about to go through. More on that in a minute. But a talent portal is really important to harnessing and selecting and channeling the right skills at the right level into the right ventures at the right time. There's a lot of rights there. And
I know, but that really is drawing on your background and your network and your experience and your reputation. Indeed. And it is very, very powerful, that Dermot. I don't think anybody would see that as insignificant, because the hardest thing for people is to find the right talent, really, when they've got a great idea. So, so how are investors responding? You know, the people that have come in, how are they responding to your concept?
So on the syndicate, I think it's very positive. I have to say that I am interviewing all of the initial members, and that is taking too long, and that's my fault, not theirs, because I'm running a company as well, and so I'm probably a little bit too ambitious on that. But we're very, very nearly through to declaring what we call Founders Day, which is the first 20 members signed up to the syndicate, and they're ready to go. And at that point, we feel that we're in a position to show deals and to see a very reasonable chance that sensible levels will be invested from those 20. Okay, and it's a really good way for us to work up our processes, get to know each other a little bit more, while we continue then to build out on the numbers. So when I tell you our first target close, if you like, for the syndicate's 100 members, that makes us a pretty big event in the UK's syndicate angel investing asset base. It'll be national, so that'll be good, because obviously we can then deploy money to the right ventures rather than being parochial and only seeing ventures within a region. And then if I then go on to say, well, if we really have our head and where we could get to, we could actually see this scale out to 250 members, at which point we've got syndicates within syndicates. These are sector specialists, these are regional specialists, and we are then really going to be in a fantastic place. And I hark back to what I said earlier, this actually cohabits and runs so well alongside the platform investing activity that we've already got in place today.
Yeah, it's tremendous. So those 20, that's very exciting founder group, isn't it? That is very exciting. And so you've talked about EIS and you know a lot about the concept of what you do. Somebody wants to become a syndicate member. What do they need to be? You've talked about cash cow entrepreneurs, investors.
Yeah.
There's also an attitude of mind, I feel, as well.
So there will be and I did refer to it as an interview, but it's both an interview both ways, because they've got to feel good about Stakeholderz, Dermot Hill if I'm doing the interviewing, or one of the other formally appointed officers doing the interviewing. It's got to work both ways. So the interview is important. They then see the charter, because that explains how we're going to work, what the benefits are for the investors. It's a single check. There will be enhanced benefits for the syndicate members that wouldn't be available to the platform investors, for instance. So the syndicate's going to insist on putting up a board observer, and it's going to be out in the market to do 2 levels of check, a single check, so that makes it easier for the venture to engage with. And that means that the first level of check is $250,000 and the second level of check is $500,000. So, these aren't insignificant sums in part of the market that we're dealing with. But I'd like to just touch on some of the changes that we're seeing in Stakeholderz coming up, slightly mindful of time, Penny, and that we're moving the company more towards what we call a private office model. And that's where our clients are going to become more the lead investors, the syndicates, the family offices, And what they're all going to be really interested in, of course, is our deal flow.
Mm-hmm.
And the deal flow is crucial, but what they want are good quality deals. They want to also bring us deals that we can then go and get funded. So the lead investors is important in that. They're a very important part of our marketing process. They're an important part of establishing confidence within our large number of registered angels. You know, who are they? What have they done before? What's their exit track record? Well, I don't want to tell them. It's much better the lead investor does, and they can do that in person. So, you know, I think we're really beginning to shift Stakeholderz to a very interesting part of the market, which is very much more, as I say, focused on the services and the integration that we will have with that market through this private office model. So, you know, I think that's going to make a big advance. We've been running a couple of pilot projects, and when I tell you that the ventures going through that are looking for between 1 and 2 million, and we are seeing pipelines of investment of 3.5 to 4 million when we start to work through those pipelines to actually drill back down into what actually arrives as crystallized investment. You know, this model for us is a really good model for us to continue to develop. And that, by the way, means that we'll be working with venture capitalists as well. So the venture capitalists want deal flow and strong and curated deal flow. And I think there's no question that Stakeholderz has proved its colors in being able to generate that in the last 15 months.
It's tremendous growth, tremendous. I just love the way you're so close to the market, understanding it. And I know I think we've just about hit our time, haven't we?
Yes, a couple more points I'd like to make before we close. I think, first of all, the innovation element in the sector is pretty slight. There's not an awful lot of innovation. Platform investing probably was the most recent, but it has been around for a long time. Think of crowdfunding. There's some, you know, large crowdfunding companies. And by the way, earlier in last year, there was a major M&A event where one of the crowdfunding companies was sold for $100 million to a company in New York. And what that did was a bit like our very first exit. It crystallized the potential for a sensible exit in the platform and crowdfunding community. So I think, you know, whether they'll be the same and there's an awful lot to get right on that journey, well, it remains to be seen. But I also think that the innovation shortly to come is in the area of crypto and the government's interest in crypto. We're certainly looking at it very closely. And crypto doesn't mean, you know, regulation and all sorts of terrible. You can use coin and token in many different ways to actually build quite a lively and vibrant community. And there are some spectacular things that sector is doing today that is really drawing my interest, certainly, but will ultimately draw many of our interests over time. So crypto is a big area for us. And the final thing is, I would like to just mention that today, and in everyone's inbox following this actual interview, will be an email, and the email will lead you to a bulletin published indeed for Stakeholderz. And we're out in the market on a valuation of 2.2 million pre-money for a small amount from our register of 150,000. But we're going to call this a snap round, and we're going to leave it open for 10 days. We're also doing something unusual because we're only going to be, excuse me, 1 minute. Oh, that's better. We're only going to be we're going to reduce the minimum investment to 5,000, and we've never done that before. It's always been 10. And what we're doing in doing that is testing whether or not there is more of a crowdfunding element to the platform that we're running. So I hope those online today will embrace it, have a look at the deal, get in touch with me, happy to run through our deck. And there is you know, an awful lot that I think we can do with more investors. We've got 19 so far, and indeed we've had 500,000 invested into us so far to bring us to where we are to date. and the investors are, in the main, I think, very happy with what we've done. And I think they're looking to seeing what's going to happen next, because it will be very exciting. And then I think it's worth just pointing out in the chat, you will have a link in the chat box for those online to go to actually take you straight to that publish on our platform. And the final point I wanted to make is that there is a poll that we would like to run just online to see what the appetite is more generally. So shall I do that now, Penny, if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be fascinating.
So to launch it, here it comes. And if you'd like to just complete the poll, that would allow us to judge how you've responded to the event that we've just put on, what your interests might be in other things going forward. So we'll leave it up for a short while just to
I was
see.
quite tempted to answer the first question.
Sorry?
I was quite tempted to answer the first question. Oh, it was excellent. How would you recommend it? Absolutely excellent. But
so it's about this time that if we were going to get any pause, don't please pause on the event, then we would have done. But anyway, we'll leave it up for a couple of seconds more, and it's a very interesting. So there's some
people here. People want to open the chat. There's some chat here. Maria Souza and Brian Foss.
Yeah. So I've just someone said, could I drop the link into the chat, which I've just done. It was at the top. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll end the poll, and that's it. I mean, Penny, thank you so much indeed for all your questions and for giving us some shape.
Well, I'm very excited by what you're doing from an investment and an exciting opportunity for people, but also, for the innovation and the community. And, I think the fact that you interview for the syndicate is really important, because it's not a high cost of entry. It's a really fair price, but I think the fact you interview and you spend time on it, I think you're brilliant, Dermot, and I've really enjoyed having a chat with you today. And I hope you get a lot of interest from this, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of engagement.
Penny, you're a star. Thank you so much indeed for taking part. Everyone attending this afternoon, thank you for your time. And with that, I will press finish for the webinar. Thank you very much indeed. Bye for now.